Welcome to the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. Get ready to be inspired, uplifted, and connected to the miraculous energy of unconditional love that I call Mother Mary. If you're a highly sensitive, highly creative entrepreneur or light worker, and you want to magnify your impact and your intuition, you are in the right place. I'm your host, Reverend Frances Faden, interfaith minister, intuitive coach, and author of Meditation is Friendship with God. I can't wait to share miraculous stories, books, meditations, messages, and interviews with other miraculous light workers just like you. Are you ready to magnify your miracles? What are we waiting for? Let's get started. Hello, my miraculous friend, and welcome to another episode of the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. This is Reverend Frances Faden, and I am so grateful that we get to spend this time together helping you to magnify your miracles. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you such an incredible book, such an incredible resource for you. And next week, you're actually going to get to meet the author of this book, Perdita Finn, in an amazing, amazing conversation that we had. I'm going to be talking to you today about a book that is called Take Back the Magic, Conversations with the Unseen World. And I think this is going to open your mind and your heart and your soul to a different level of connection and support than you thought was possible. But before we get into all that great stuff, let's take a breath together. Breathing in the energy of expansion, breathing out anything you no longer need. And knowing that whatever it is that you need to hear today to help you move one step forward on your path, to help you truly start to magnify those miracles, we're going to take one more deep breath in gratitude, and we can begin. All right, my friend. Well, welcome back once again. You know, I love, love, love books. And whenever I get to connect with an author and really get into what they're sharing with us, I love that. It's one of my favorite things. So make sure that you tune in next week to connect with Perdita. And if you are listening to this podcast before September 12th of 2023, do yourself a favor and pre-order this book. She's going to send you some goodies if you pre-order them. And if you're listening to this after September 12th, still go and order this book because it's such amazing, amazing stuff that she's sharing with you. So I had the good fortune of working with Perdita last year. It was September of last year, I believe. And I took her class that much of what she taught in the class is in this book called Take Back the Magic. And it was all about connecting with people who have crossed over, connecting with people on the other side, what she calls the dead. And you might think, well, wait a minute, isn't that what a medium does? And yes, that is what a medium does, but this wasn't a mediumship class. It wasn't about that. This was about opening yourself up to simply connect with your loved ones who have crossed over and how we're actually able, all of us are able to do this. And she goes into great detail about how this was a normal way of being for a long, long time. And it's very, very recently, I don't know if it's Vatican II or when it was exactly, but it's very recently that this process was suppressed, and was probably, now that I think about it, probably more like in the last couple hundred years where this process was suppressed, because it used to be just a bunch of grandmothers saying their rosaries, connecting with their husband, their mother, their children, whoever had passed on, and receiving that guidance and receiving that support. And you, my friend, can start to connect with that energy and that support. So before I say anything else, let me just put your mind at ease and say, there is nothing weird about this. There is nothing crazy about this. There is nothing evil about this. There's no darkness in any kind of a bad way. This is actually really, really normal. And what you'll see is that as people in your life start to cross over, start to transition, they don't really go anywhere. They leave their body, but their energy is still very much with us, and their presence is still very much with us. And that's a big piece of what she's teaching in here. So this book is part memoir, and she tells her story, such a powerful story of how she ended up connecting with and healing her relationship with her father, because her relationship with her father while he was alive was just really painful and awful. And her dad was just not available. And at the end of his life, actually even cruel. And he, I think, didn't leave anything to any of his kids in his will, and just was really kind of spiteful. And how through the process of connecting with him on the other side, her father's now one of her most helpful allies and trusted spirits on the other side to help her. And so here's what I know. I know that not everybody is going to experience an apparition of Mother Mary. Not everybody is going to get visited by a saint or an ascended master. Not everybody is going to channel a being like Abraham, or, not everybody's going to do that. But every one of us is going to lose somebody. Every one of us is going to have somebody that we know, that we love, cross over to the other side. Every one of us, because we're all going to do that at some point as well, right? Every single person, which is why I think this is one of the most important books that you can read, because it's definitely going to apply to you. You don't have to be a certain religion. You don't have to be from a certain country. You don't have to come from a certain background. This is a book that every human being, in my opinion, needs to read and will benefit from, because every one of us, if you haven't already had it happen, if you haven't already lost your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your aunt, your uncle, your grandparents, you're a child, perhaps, a best friend, a lover, so many people that we love in our lives, they're all going to cross over. And we don't have to lose them in the way that we think. We lose our physical, their physical presence, but their energetic presence is still with us. So, as I said, now I have the book, because I'm recording this before the actual book has come out. I have an advanced proof that they sent me. So what I'm reading, it might be a little bit different than the book that you have. But as I said, it is part memoir and part workshop, and beautiful, beautiful writing. I'm such a big fan of Perdita's. I think her writing is so, so beautiful. And so she's got these beautiful chapters that are her stories and really guiding us to understand the land, what she calls the land of the dead, and how they started to make their presence known to her. And we're not talking about like Marie Antoinette, like nothing fancy. We're talking about feeling the presence of energy around you, and the energy of love really around you. And she shares such a beautiful story of this spirit after her son was born, who made her presence known. And that spirit had been his mother in a previous lifetime and was still very connected to him. And Perdita then shares the story of how she asked the spirit, please help me take care of him and help me to, raise him and love him. And that the spirit does end up doing that. There's this dramatic story of her son getting his arm stuck in the door of a train. And everybody thought that it was going to have to be, amputated. It was a dramatic story. And they finally get the door loose and his arm loose, and not even a bruise. And when she connects in with the spirit of that mother on the other side later in the day, she's still shaken by the whole thing. It's like, oh, where were you? I thought you were going to take care of him. And the spirit says to her, look at his arm. Not even a bruise, not even a scratch. You thought it was going to have to be removed, and he's fine. He's fine. So such beautiful, beautiful writing is that. I do want to read a little bit to you. So she's got these beautiful chapters, and then there's 4 areas or 4 workshop things of how to summon the ancestors, collaborating with the dead, communicating with the dead, and then becoming the dead. And then this is the long story of our souls, which I love. I love, I love, I love. So this is the section that's called Collaborating with the Dead. I'm going to read some of this to you so you get an idea about what I'm talking about. None of us needs to manage life on our own. Our ancestors are standing by to help us overcome obstacles, seize opportunities, answer our yearnings, and make the impossible possible. They long to be involved with us again, and they have resources we cannot imagine. To give them an assignment is to offer them the possibility of an ongoing, blossoming relationship. The tasks that we give to the ancestors are opportunities for them to show us they are really there. We call on an old uncle who had been a mechanic when we were trying to buy a used car. We invite a beloved grandmother to help us pull off a family reunion without a hitch. When I need things to grow, I ask my grandmother, the gardener. We ask the dead to watch over our kids, help with our work, and get us out of jams. Our ancestors called on the dead for help with everything, from finding food and medicine to seeking shelter and warmth to reuniting with loved ones. We too can seek the help of those who have gone and call upon their generosity, their interests, their talents, and their expertise. When we do, we will experience the lived reality that no one is ever lost to us and no one is ever alone. And then she's got these beautiful questions that many of her workshop people have asked, and she answers these questions. And here's a question. I'm not used to asking for help with anything. What kind of jobs can I assign to the dead? And here's her response. My sister-in-law has an old world sense of hospitality. Everyone who arrives in her home is handed a cup of tea and an assignment for getting the meal ready. One guest is washing lettuce, another is cutting potatoes, somebody sets the table, and a young man brought by a cousin is situated on the couch with an elderly relative in need of a patient ear. The argumentative father of the new boyfriend is sent on an errand to the store the next town over. Some of the jobs invite greater intimacy with her. Some are quests that protect her from having to manage a difficult personality. But when dinner is finally served, everyone will feel part of the festive collaboration. It is my sister-in-law's ingenuity and inclusivity that makes all this possible, and it is this same spirit that we can bring to our relationships with our ancestors. Over time, we will find our own creative ways for working with the dead. Initially, we may come to them with urgent needs, a child in the hospital, a loved one looking for work, an addiction that just won't quit. But over time, we may become more and more comfortable asking for their help with literally everything in our lives. Help me get a real person on the other end of the phone. Help me not lose my temper. Help me get through this day, this hour, this moment. Not only does modern life teach us to be independent, it also demands that we rely on money for most of our needs. But the dead rely upon an economy of prayer, and with it, they can bring to us all kinds of miracles and magic. Next question. How do I know which jobs to give an ancestor and to give which ancestor? If someone was remarkably talented or successful in life, it stands to reason that they can offer us help with a similar endeavor from beyond the veil. The award-winning chemist will whisper into our child's ear during the test. The virtuoso will help us with our performance. The thoughtful grandmother will send us spiritual care packages when we are lonely. When those I love are sick, I tend to call on the doctor and nurses, friends of my father's that I knew growing up, putting together a ghostly medical team to work behind the scenes. But it is also true that those who failed at something or were frustrated in life have something to prove. The man who is never able to publish his own poetry is determined that ours will win the literary prize. The woman who could not escape domestic violence will guide us out of an abusive relationship. The local ice cream man who'd wished he had the resources to go to medical school will bring a healing sweetness to the doctor's visit. We must trust our own intuition. We will know what feels right if we check in with ourselves. And then the last thing I'm going to read to you, the question, what if it doesn't work? What if they don't give me what I want? Her answer, the dead are not a vending machine. I love that. We don't put in a coin of our request and wait for our candy bar. The answers they offer may surprise us. After all, from the other side of the veil, they have a perspective that is unavailable to us. Part of the reason we call upon them is that we know they can see the big picture and the long story. Can we break down our request? Instead of asking for instantaneous healing, we may need to request to find the right doctor, the right medicine, and even the day-to-day courage to manage a difficult treatment. Do we need some additional helpers? Perhaps there are others among the ranks standing ready to assist. Is there anyone else we want to add to the team? My mother had a group of women she worked with on political matters in our small town. They were called the Ladies' Committee. They knew that it often takes a whole regiment to win certain battles. Now dead, I call on these women whenever I have big projects underway. Most of all, we must trust the timing. We live within very simplistic notions of linear time, but the dead have all the time in the world. How many unexpected blessings in this life are the answered prayers of lifetimes past? So true. And then the next part, which I'm not going to read to you, but is important to know, is what she calls the difficult dead, people that we've had difficult relationships with. And I think that that's really important to know that, maybe you had a difficult relationship with your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your sister, your brother, your uncle, anybody, or maybe even a child that's passed over. If you had a difficult relationship, then what happens? Well, you can still connect with them, because in my experience, and I started taking her class right around the time that I started to acknowledge that people on the other side were coming through to me more and more and wanting to connect with my clients. And at first I didn't think much of it. And then I was like, oh, I think I need to learn a little bit more about this. And I'm so glad that I learned what Perdita had to share instead of taking some really intense mediumship training, because what I learned made it so simple and so easy and so conversational. And it's been so helpful for me to understand that when somebody appears in somebody's session, and what I do in my work is I see people in your energy field. And when somebody comes, if it's somebody that you didn't have a good relationship with, especially at the end, now I know how to handle that. And now I know how to guide my own clients on how to handle that, because once people cross over to the other side, they're not in their ego anymore. They reemerge into what I call the field of unconditional love, and they still have their personality. You can still recognize them, but they don't have their prejudices, and they don't have their bitterness, and they don't have their, whatever it might be. All those things drop away, and they see you through the eyes of unconditional love. And now they understand what they didn't understand before, which is one of the reasons I think they're so eager to help and to have a different kind of relationship with you. So even if you had an awful relationship with somebody, know that there can still be healing. And that's a big piece, I think, of what this book is about. Not only does it help us to see that we're never alone and we can heal that sense of loneliness, we're always connected and we can receive that guidance. It doesn't have to be from some super avatar. It can just be from your grandma, or it can be from your second grade elementary school teacher, or, wherever there's a connection like that, it's a beautiful connection, you can get that help. You're never alone. And then even in the relationships that were difficult, there is healing that is possible for you. And not just healing, but as Perdita says, is miracles. Magic and miracles can happen in quite miraculous ways. So I highly encourage you to connect with her energy. As I said, she's going to be joining us next week. You are going to love, love, love the conversation. And if you don't already love Perdita, she's been on the podcast before, you will fall in love with her, because she's just a big walking heart chakra. And she 100% embodies everything that she believes and everything that she knows. And she so wants you to know that you're not alone, and that you can connect so easily with your ancestors, with your loved ones. And loved ones includes your cats and your dogs and your pets. And And even, loved ones that are not necessarily ancestors, like for the last 2 months, the singer George Michael has been showing up for me, and I've been playing his music over and over again. I'm like, why am I suddenly in the energy of George Michael? Maybe George Michael is helping me step into owning a little bit more about music. I don't know. And then we had our beloved Sinead O'Connor, who has crossed over, and I've been having conversations with her as well. Sometimes I connect in and I think about Princess Diana, and whenever I'm feeling self-doubt or, whatever it might be, I think about her and I think about her elegance, and I ask her to help me be more comfortable in the public eye, to be more comfortable, like being able to be seen in a way, because she had such elegance with that. And I really admire that. So there are people who have crossed over that you can start to tap into. If you need to finish your novel, you can contact Charlotte Bronte or Charles Dickens or whoever might be on the other side. If you need to finish a song, you can call on George Harrison or John Lennon or Janis Joplin or anybody and everybody, all these great beings. Now, of course, our lineage is closest to us, but what Perdita has shown me is that it's love and devotion is what creates the energy of a saint. And by loving and being devoted to any being who's crossed over, you draw their presence and the blessings and the magic. So if this is before September 12th, 2023, please pre-order this book. Do yourself a favor. And when it arrives, dive right in. I have a magical story that I will be sharing with you next week. It's actually a miraculous story of when this advanced copy showed up for me. It's a sign from the other side in a really profound way. I'm going to leave that for next week so that you know what happened. So much magic connected with this book. Do yourself a favor and get this book, whether it's before or after September 12th. I would love to hear if this topic resonates with you, what you think about it. Have you noticed yourself connecting with people from the other side? Have you noticed the veil getting thinner and thinner? I have noticed that. And it seems like with so many people leaving the planet, that how could we not be able to connect with them, right? It just seems like, of course, we'll be able to connect with them. Absolutely. I look forward to introducing you to Perdita next week in that beautiful conversation. And remember, my friend, as always, your miracle is already here. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. I'm so grateful to be able to spend this time with you. If you want even more inspiration, feel free to visit my website, francisfaden.com or magnifyyourmiracles.com. And if you did enjoy this episode, I would really appreciate it if you left a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever it is that you connect with awesome podcasts. Remember, the key to magnifying your miracles is remembering that your miracle is already here.